What's going on, everyone? You're back with your boy Jono for another quick math lesson. Today we're going to learn how to calculate tax from a tax table. This is almost a guaranteed question in HSCs all the way back for the last 20 years. Being on top of this is an incredibly important skill because it's going to come up again for the rest of your life. It's not just an HSC question. This is something that happens all the time in the real world. So even just having a really good guess before you submit your tax return is incredibly important, just so you're budgeting correctly and you know how much money you've got. Just before we get started, it's really important to remember that we pay tax on our taxable income, not our gross income. The difference between gross and taxable is that our gross income is everything that's coming in, but then our taxable income is the income after deduction, so our work-related expenses and things like charitable donations and our uni loans. Making sure that we're on top of this, not the gross, but the taxable, is really important to reducing how much tax you actually pay. Tax occurs on this thing called a sliding scale, which means the more money that you make, the more tax you actually pay. This is not just a total amount, it's also the percentage that you pay gets higher as you earn more money. These are called tax brackets, and you might have heard of those before, and there is just a massive myth about these tax brackets that we're going to address first, because I really don't want you to make this mistake. It might cost you thousands of dollars over your life. So the big myth that you might have heard is that some people will say, oh, don't take that promotion, don't take that extra money because you're going to move up a tax bracket, and that means you'll actually have less money. Even though your boss is giving you more money, you're going to end up with less because of the tax. This is incorrect, because what's going to happen is you're still going to make more money. You'll pay more tax because it is more money, but you're still going to be left with a larger amount than what you started with. There is no way for you to move into a new tax bracket and earn less money overall. This is what a standard tax table is going to look like in your maths questions. And there's two columns or two bits of information that we've got to be on top of. This first column, where it says how much money you make, the taxable income, all we've got to scan for is our tax bracket. Where do we sit? So if you make $30,000, you'd be in this row or this tax bracket, meaning that you pay 19 cents for every dollar over 18,200. But then if you make 100,000, you can see that you're paying more tax. And that's why this is a sliding scale. The more money you make, the higher percentage of your paycheck that you pay. Then if we look at the other side, this is our tax rate, or the percentage of our income that we pay as tax. So what's really important to note here is, because we're talking about cents, 19 cents, 37 cents, we are talking about this as a decimal point, because we're really paying 19 cents out of every dollar, or 19 cents out of 100 cents, which is the same as 0.19. So this idea of a decimal point is really, really important, and it comes from the fact that a dollar is made up of 100 cents. We're going to look really quickly at this myth of moving up a tax bracket will cost you more money. I actually had a student that was working in their gap year, so after year 12, and I saw them at the pub. And I was asking how they were doing, and they just told me that they didn't take extra money because they didn't want to move into this next tax bracket. They were earning $18,000 and they had the potential to earn $20,000. So I had to get out the calculator and show them why that was a terrible mistake. So for the $18,000, we paid no tax. We're in that first tax bracket where it says nil. That makes a lot of sense. But for the $20,000, they assumed that they were going to pay this 19 cents on the whole thing, which would make it a bad idea. But that idea of for every dollar over means that we get the first $18,200 completely tax-free. We're only paying the 19 cents for the money above that. So for that extra $1,800, so from 18,000 up to 20,000, that's all we're paying tax on. So the total tax that this person's going to pay is 0.19 multiplied by 1,800, which is equal to $342. So in total, they would be making like $19,700, which is obviously way better than the $18,000 they were going to make. Trust me, this person was stingy. They could have used the extra cash. It definitely would have helped them when they went overseas just trying to hang out. In order to get these questions right in a test conditions, there's only three things that I want you to do. The first thing is we have to find the tax bracket. Sometimes this might be after a deduction, but finding the tax bracket is incredibly important. Once we have found that tax bracket, I just want you to read across and write down whatever you see. The only thing that's going to change is where you see for every dollar, I just want you to put bracket income minus. And I know that seems a little bit weird, but we're going to do a question straight away and you're going to see exactly how to do it. These questions could not be easier. You're just reading and writing down what you see. So for this question, we've got an income of over $160,000. Pretty good year. So the first thing we've got to do is identify what tax bracket we're in. And we can see we're in the second one from the bottom, just here. Now I know what tax bracket I'm in. The rest of the question becomes unbelievably easy. We just go to the next column and read across. Whatever you read, you write down. The first thing we see is 19,822. So I'm going to write that down. The very next word is plus. So I'm going to write a plus. Now I've got 37 cents. We know that that's the same as 0.37. So we've got the first part of this absolutely smashed. Now this is the hard part. Instead of writing for every $1, we just have to write bracket and our income. This is then minus the very last number, $87,000, or the low end of this tax bracket. All you've got to do now is just throw this into your calculator. It will give you the correct answer. So that means if your income is $160,000, you're paying $46,921 worth of tax, which makes sense. You're paying more tax because you earned quite a lot. What we're going to do now is just go through what each part of this formula means, because we did just kind of jump into it. Hey, just read across. It makes it very easy to work out the answer, but what does each step mean? So that front number, the 19,000, what that comes from is the tax accrued for the first 3 tax brackets. So we pay $19,822 for the first $87,000 that we earned. So what the tax table is doing is already working that out for you. Otherwise, we'd have to go through each one and plus them together. The tax table does that by putting the number at the very start. Then the 37 cents is our new tax rate for all the money that's more than $87,000. So that 37 is going to be multiplied by the remaining money, or the money that's over that 87,000 bucks. And to make sure we know what that amount is, we're doing our income, the total amount of money that we have, minus that $87,000. That's going to be the difference, or the extra money, and we're paying 37 cents of tax on that amount of cash. So the two parts that we've got, the front number is just all the other tax that we're paying, the first parts, and then the second amount is just our new tax rate for the extra cash that we've earned. So we're just going to do one more question. This is a past HSC question, so we know something like this might pop up again in a future HSC. So we're trying to find out how much tax do we pay if we make $47,000, if that's our taxable income. So the first thing we've got to do is find our tax bracket, which is obviously just here. It's above $45,000, so we're definitely in this tax bracket. Then we're just going to do the same thing. Read across, write it down, and bang it into our calculator. We've got $8,310 plus 40 cents, or 0.40. That's the first part of this done. Now we've got to put in how much we earned, so bracket 47,000 minus the lower end of that tax bracket, which is 45,000. We just have to throw this into our calculator, which is equal to $9,110. Done. That's all the working out we have to do. These questions do get a little bit more difficult when we have deductions first, or we've got to include the Medicare levy, which is something we're going to go through in our next lesson, but the ideas are exactly the same. How much did we start with? What tax bracket are we in? And then just write down what we see in the tax table. Thanks so much for watching this lesson, guys, and I'll see you later.